The Charlie Kirk Show begins in 10 seconds.
The Charlie Kirk Show starts now.
Today, Charlie Kirk rests in glory in heaven for all eternity. He has gone from speaking on campuses in Wisconsin to kneeling at the throne of God, where he is right now.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, this is Christ speaking, except a corn of wheat fall onto the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. And I want to thank Charlie for his sacrifice, because much fruit is going to be realized.
Now I want you to know that Charlie right now is in heaven, not because he was a great husband and father, not because he saved millions of kids out of darkness on college campuses, not because he changed minds and chased votes to save the country, not because he sacrificed himself for his Savior. Charlie Kirk is in heaven because his Savior sacrificed himself for Charlie Kirk.
But the main thing about Charlie and his message, he was bringing the gospel to the country. He was doing the thing that the people in charge hate most, which is calling for them to repent.
I believe Charlie is still urging us not to sit back, not to be quiet, but to carry on his mission forward, loudly, proudly, and with the same conviction he showed.
Sacrifice is a gift. Sacrifice is that last full measure of devotion for God, for country, and for his people.
We will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes for which Charlie gave his last measure of devotion. You cannot defeat us, you cannot slow us, you cannot stop us, you cannot deter us. We will carry Charlie and Erica in our heart.
But we go forward strengthened by his faith and bolstered by his courage and inspired by his example to defend the country he lived for.
You see, Charlie Kirk was a true believer. For the cause of freedom, for the power of young people, belief in our republic and our founding principles, in America first and make America great again. But more importantly, he was a true believer. Only Christ is King, our Lord and Savior.
The lesson of Charlie's life is that you should never underestimate what one person can do with a good heart, a righteous cause, a cheerful spirit, and the will to fight, fight, fight.
Charlie lived what our founders envisioned. Freedom, the right to speak even when we disagree. Freedom. I may not agree with what you say, but I will fight to defend to the death with my very life your right to speak.
Now, our whole administration is here, but not just because we love Charlie as a friend, even though we did, but because we know we wouldn't be here without him.
In the words of Soren Kierkegaard, the tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule has just begun.
On the cross, our Savior said, Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Every day, there's a battle for your mind raging. Information coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not. You found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Everybody, welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show. This is Andrew Colvett, executive producer of this show, and that empty chair reminds us of Charlie's legacy, his memory, and the fact that political violence took his life, an assassination did, and this morning we awoke to more news of political violence targeted at ICE in Texas. And to start off the show, and we had a whole show planned, but I thought it was important that we do this. Simply, it hits very close to home for this team, I can tell you. And so I wanted to have Border Czar Tom Homan kick off the top of the show with us. Border Czar Homan, thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about what happened in Texas?
Well, this morning, a lone gunman was targeting an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas. It's where aliens are processed, either for removal or transfer to a facility. Again, it's the third shooting that's occurred in Texas against immigration officials. And we had a shooter show up at a Border Patrol facility and open fire trying to kill Border Patrol agents. He was killed by agents. Then we had a group of people show up with weapons at an ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas, and tried to kill ICE agents. And they did shoot one officer, a local police officer, who's also responding to the scene. And now we have this today where a lone gunman stood at perch and opened up on ICE during a transportation transfer. And we know we have at least 2 dead, and officers are uninjured. And it later was announced by Kash Patel that one of the bullets had an anti-ICE slogan on the bullet. So this was clearly a targeted attack against ICE.
Well, Border Czar, I just know that Charlie, this is his show, he was such a supporter of yours and was worried for our brave men and women in law enforcement that were doing what the voters had voted for, very, very clearly, to remove illegal aliens from this country. And we've seen these stats that the targetings are on the increase, that assaults against ICE officers. Are we still seeing a ramp up? I mean, this instance is awful. Thank God no law enforcement were harmed or injured, but, you know, our prayers are with the families of the detainees that have lost their lives. But are we seeing this continue to ramp up across the country? Are we still seeing it go up? Are we seeing any calming down of the violence and the attacks against ICE officers?
First of all, you're right. I had many discussions with Charlie, and he always ended the discussion to be safe, and that ICE officers should be safe, because the rhetoric has continued to increase. Assaults on ICE officers are up over 1,000%, and no, the rhetoric hasn't stopped. And I said months ago, that if the hateful rhetoric didn't decrease, it's going to end in bloodshed. Someone's going to die. And of course, I was called a fearmonger. The left says I was, making irresponsible comments. Unfortunately, I was right. And just this past weekend, we saw protests turn criminal in Chicago and in Boston. I mean, in Chicago, the ICE facility is under attack. In Portland, Oregon, the ICE facility there has been under attack for months. So, no, it has not slowed down. Either has the hateful rhetoric from some up on Hill, some are congressional representatives, and other people who are in a position where that small fraction, I would say on the left, not everybody on the left is a bad person. Most of them, aren't. But there's that fraction that listens to this rhetoric, and they feel empowered to take action against ICE. If you got a member of Congress comparing ICE to the secret police, which is a direct affiliation with the Nazis, or calling them straight out Nazis to terrorists, or Governor Newsom just recently said the secret police. I mean, he just passed legislation about secret police. I mean, bottom line is that rhetoric is causing some of this violence. And I've been calling for people to stop the hateful rhetoric, because it's more are going to be hurt. And matter of fact, when we talked about the person that was shot at the Alvarado City, and we talked about the gunman that was killed at a Border Patrol facility, I said at that time, there's going to be more. if the rhetoric doesn't stop. I've seen this game before. I've seen this story before, and I just hate to see it right now. I hope, between what, happened to our officers across the country, what happened to Charlie, and what's happened today, I mean, at what point do people just, stop the hate? You can disagree with what ICE does, but taking those sort of actions, it's unbelievable. There's no excuse for it.
I want to show you a graphic. I'm going to put up a graphic. It's basically which groups justify violence based on age and political affiliation. If you could put up 141, this is the question: is it ever justified for citizens to resort to violence in order to achieve political goals? And this is the percentage responding yes. And you can see there, Tom, at 18 to 39-year-old liberal progressives, that's 30% believe that sometimes violence is justified to achieve a political goal. And I believe, that matches with what happened to Charlie. I don't know the age of this particular shooter in Texas, but we are seeing an alarming rise. And by the way, it's worth noting conservatives 18 to 39 are the most peaceful node on there besides moderates over 60. So we're doing our part on the right to quell the violence, to quell the rhetoric, to say, lean into Jesus, do not give in to hate, forgive your enemies. We have to find a solution here. And yet that one node, you can see it sticks out like a sore thumb there, Tom. 18 to 39, 30% of them believes violence can be justified. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not the country I grew up in. I mean, you never heard of this. When I went to college, you never heard of kind of this justification for violence ever. I really think that, many of the colleges have failed us. And also think that the negative publicity being pushed by 90% of the media, 90% of the media, constantly attack this administration and the work we're doing. And I've said it before, I think there's groups out there that hate President Trump more than they love their communities and more than they, have any common sense. There's no reason for it. I mean, it's out of control. And you're right. The last 4 years under the Biden administration, everybody was angry about the border. Everybody was angry about the number of Americans dying from fentanyl, the vast increase in sex trafficking, the cartels having placement in this country, killing millions of Americans with poison. You didn't see that counter protest that turned criminal. No. So it's mainly on one side, and again, I'm hoping today, on top of everything that's happened in the last few months, just let's stop the hate. Well, let's have a meaningful debate, which Charlie was all supportive. Let's have a debate about the issues. Let's get back to talking.
Yep.
Rather than putting bullets in a firearm.
Tom, I want to make this personal. About 1 minute remaining. I know that this kind of rhetoric has directly impacted your life and your family. If whatever details you can share, I want the audience to know what the real impact is for real people like yourself. 1 minute.
I have a 24/7 security detail because of threats against me. I don't live with my family because I don't want them around danger as much as I can. So, it's tough, but I'm not going away. I'm not shutting up. I'm going to continue fighting to make this country great again. President Trump made a promise to American people. He brought me to help him in that promise to make America safe again. And we're going to continue working to remove the worst of the worst illegal aliens from this country to make our community safer. Hard stop.
Well, God bless you, sir. Thank you for joining the show. I thought it was important to lead with that. And on behalf of a grateful nation, Tom, thank you for your service. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your voice. And thank you for the results, because this is what the American people voted for. And we will not be deterred. The truth will be the truth. And we cannot be cowed by these vigilantes. And we got to do something about it, but we will not be cowed. Tom Homan, thank you so much. Borders are for the Trump administration.
Thank you, sir.
More when we get back from break. We'll be right back.
think it should be, but it's not being enforced, right? So why should we let our cities be ransacked but not legalize it and make it safer and make it regulated?
There is no safe fentanyl. There is no safe heroin. Doesn't exist.
But pure heroin, and
Yeah.
if you sold it in a store, it would be safe, right?
Again, not only can you still overdose, let's just talk the more moral. What an ugly society that would be if heroin is considered to be something commercialized. All of a sudden you're going to see heroin commercials. You're like, oh yeah, you think that your day is bad? It's okay. Go get a little bit of heroin at the local Walgreens. We laugh, but that's where we're headed. That's the society.
That's not where we're headed. You can keep living your life and living by your values.
The law is a teacher. The law should reflect morality.
Okay.
Definitionally. So, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Can I get a hat?
Yes.
Do you mind signing it?
I'll sign it. Yeah.
Can I get the red one?
Okay. Thanks. Yes. Other questions that disagree? Go to the front. Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
Got it. Okay. All right, Charlie, you had done a show on your or a segment on your show about Governor Tim Walz. You know, it was funny, it was cute. He was looking at the excuse me. It was looking at his podcast appearance with Gavin Newsom. He said he wanted to get into a fight. It was just goofy jesting. And, you know, you showed a video of him trying to shoot a shotgun. It didn't work out well, but I just figured
he didn't know how to load a shotgun.
There you go. So my point is, though, I figured as a political commentator, you would prefer to have a substantive discussion about the economic policies that he has passed. And I have some listed here. Forgive me, the list is a little long, but it has price tags on what it would be estimated to cost to implement these policies in the United States. And I just would like to get your opinion on a few of them. Free breakfast and lunch for kids, making sure that children can eat in school.
That's not what it
$20 billion per year.
Bad idea.
Legalizing marijuana, I've gotten your opinion on that. That's a net savings of $8 billion per year. Carbon-free electricity by 2050
Terrible.
costs $41 billion per year. We have 12 weeks paid family sick leave costing $45 billion.
Wait, is this what he did in Minnesota or what he
That's correct. It's what he did in Minnesota, and these costs are the projected costs of what it would cost to implement these things.
Keep working through the list, and then I have a question.
Okay. So banning gay deconversion therapy, a savings of $9 billion.
It's an attack on freedom of speech. How does that save $9 billion? You got to explain that one. So banning freedom.
Having the deconversion therapy.
No. Explain. No.
centers.
Don't just read off the piece. Explain to me. Use your reason. How banning therapy saves $9 billion.
Okay. Let's go through the rest of the list. I'll come back to that point as well.
Okay.
Now, I still have a few more. Red flag laws. If someone says
I'm against.
that if they want to shoot up a school, then the government has a right to confiscate that person's
That is
guns.
not what a red flag law is, for the record. A red flag law is that somebody, like a spouse who's in a dispute, could wrongfully accuse their husband who's a veteran, oh, he's violent or whatever, even though he isn't, and his rights get taken away. Or even worse, a husband can say it against his wife and she's not able to protect herself. Red flag laws are not that at all. And by the way, if someone says they're going to shoot up a school, they're going to get arrested. They're not going to have their guns taken away.
This has happened in the past, and they have.
Yeah, you know
not
who's
been
friends with
arrested.
school shooters? Tim Walz is friends with school shooters.
Everyone
That's what he
brings
literally.
up that point, but let's go.
Yeah, they bring up that
economic
point because
policy.
that's what he said.
So
He's like, I'm friends with school shooters.
the
That's
total
really
cost
creepy and weird.
Of all of these are.
It is wrong to put your political opponents in jail.
I believe it is wrong, and we saw that right before he got elected, that they said, turn it all off. I think that we should have had a much deeper investigation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Who wants a hat, everybody?
All right, I had a question about, I'm Tyler, by the way. I had a question. My girlfriend and I have differing political beliefs. We voted differently. We're both Christians. We have a lot of the same beliefs about how humans should be treated, abortion, that type of thing. But identity politics a little bit, not liking candidates based on their personality versus their policy kind of divided us. Also, prioritization of policies. So she's a little more foreign helping. And I think we should be more focused domestically right now with the damage we've taken on the last 4 years. So how should we handle our relationship when we have a lot of the same values but differing political beliefs?
It's a really good question. So would you say that even outside of Trump, would you still largely agree on politics or no?
Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. This is Andrew Colvett, executive producer of this show. I am joined by Blake Neff, one of the producers, as well as the great Dr. James Orr. Honored to have you, Doctor, on the show. I'm candidly, of all the conversations I've had, and we've had some amazing guests and some amazing conversations over the last couple of weeks. This is probably the one I'm most excited about because of the way that you and I got to meet. Charlie was there. You met Charlie when he went to Cambridge and Oxford, Oxbridge, as you guys, I guess, call the grouping. But we then spent a weekend together in Aspen, and we shared some just truly amazing moments. And you also sat down with Charlie for an interview, which will now sort of, in a haunting way, but in a beautiful way, because I know how much Charlie loved you. Your interview with Charlie on that Aspen trip was actually the last episode that went on the Charlie Kirk Show broadcast before he was assassinated. So it's a weird thing, I'm sure, for me to hear that from me. It's weird for me to say it out loud, but it's true. And I just knew Charlie so well that, again, it's sort of fitting because you were like this academic, ideological, spiritual, just shining light for Charlie, so much so that I was jealous when we got back from Aspen. Charlie looked at you and he was like, "Can you hang out with me on Sunday and just like be my professor for a day?" And as far as I know, you guys hung out on Sunday and you talked about the classics and about the canon of Western civilization. And I love that because I know that was basically the happiest you would ever see Charlie Kirk. So thank you so much for giving him that day so close to the end and for just being somebody that he deeply, deeply loved and appreciated.
Well, Andrew, thank you. It's just so good to be with you, despite the circumstances. And gosh, what a surreal few days it's been. What an extraordinary achievement you guys pulled off. I was so thrilled to have been able to make it to the stadium on Sunday for that extraordinary day. And just so many thoughts going through my mind. But, you know, I've been teaching undergraduates, graduate students at Oxford and Cambridge on and off for 15, 16 years. And I can say, you know, hand on heart, I had never come across a young person with that thirst for knowledge, that thirst for intellectual formation, spiritual wisdom. You know, I spent weeks trying to get him to call me James, but it was always Dr. Orr. There's always this sort of extraordinary respect and humility that he had. And you're right, that last afternoon, just before I was getting off to the airport, I think that morning a car was supposed to pick me up to take me to his apartment. And Mikey, Charlie's chief of staff, rang me and said, I've cancelled the car. I said, what? How am I going to get to Charlie's apartment? He said, no. He wants to come and pick you up from the hotel so that he can have more time with you. And you know, we had a day together. We had a wonderful morning and went into his apartment and 2-3 hours of just philosophy, just grilling me on that big whiteboard. He wanted me to, you know, map out moral philosophy. He was just prepping. What if I get this question? What if I get that question? It was just extraordinary. And absorbing it all, taking notes, grilling me. Yes, I understand that point, but how do I make it accessible? And there was always this sense of the audience that he wanted to reach, and not be in conflict with, not to sort of dunk on them at all, but to inform them, to educate them, to enlighten them. Just extraordinary. And then got back to London. I'm getting texts from him, Bible verses from him, and then a text on, that lecture by Jean-Paul Sartre you mentioned on existentialism in 1946, can you send me a copy? And can you explain to me that point? It's okay, let's do it. And did that. And then on my last text from him was on the 1st of September saying, can you send me a lecture on natural law? And God help me, I never got back to him. It was a busy week, and I thought, I've got to sit down and do this properly. And then, by the time things had calmed down, it had happened. And I'd never met anyone like him. And, you meet people who you know that you're going to be friends for years and years and years, and you're going to learn so much from each other. And we had great plans. He was so excited about Britain. He loved it so much. He was staring now at this photo of Winston Churchill, and was so excited about what was happening on the right in Britain, and wanted to know exactly what all the polling dynamics were and how he could help. Extraordinary.
You were a really important bridge for him, and he was an Anglophile, begrudgingly, but he genuinely was. And we'll get into more of that and what his trip to England, I think, really was all about. We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I mentioned just before we hit the break that Charlie was a real Anglophile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that many Brits maybe appreciated that because he came into England and really lit up the leadership, lit up the current zeitgeist in the country. But it has become clear to me that Charlie, and I've said this a bunch of times, and I'm just going to say it again for the sake of this conversation, that Charlie was a modern prophet. And he was going around campuses, this country, calling our leaders to repent, calling our citizens to repent, to remember themselves. And he went straight into the belly of the beast in Oxbridge and called on Brits to remember themselves. Stand up, man. Put your shoulders back. Remember who you are. You're a great people. Like, wake up. And just like they do with prophets, not only is Charlie dead, but in England, they rejected him. Tell me about your perspective on that.
Well, I think it was Jordan Peterson who first connected us, I think about a year ago, I think. And so Charlie had been on my radar for a while. We had a lot of mutual friends, but he was very excited about his trip to England and started peppering me with texts and requests like, what will the audience be like? What are the kinds of questions that I should be thinking about? What are the topics? He was just prepping. And so he came to Cambridge. I went to the Cambridge Union to just give him some moral support with my son and half a dozen students, and we were the only ones supporting him. I mean, my goodness, it was
and Blake.
And Blake, you were there, of course, and the team. You and the team were there, and it was impressive. I mean, he was combative, he was quick, he was, I don't think any of those students, and they were bright students, I was quite, in a funny way, proud of those students. I mean, they were, off the cliff progressive on on all the issues, but I thought they stood their ground well. And then we went for this meal afterwards, and just again, 2-3 hours of just talking stats. And I got a call from one of this big media platform, GB News, just desperate to get half an hour of Charlie's time, but it was down in London. It was just awkward to get to. I said, look, I know this is difficult, but if you could just, would you consider this? And he said, absolutely, no problem. And you managed to fit it into that very tight schedule.
That was with Ben.
Yes, that's right, with Ben.
That clip went viral.
Yes.
It was a good thing he fitted it.
It's great. He did it, and it was much appreciated. And so, I think it was great. And I sat in that debating chamber and thought, this is a proper debate. This is what this place was designed for. And this is really puncturing the groupthink in a way that is pretty rare these days on elite campuses on both sides of the Atlantic. And it was, we were fortunate to have him. And
images.
And then we got some images there.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the bouncy Brit.
The bouncy Brit.
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, bless him. Yeah, he that was Charlie found that so funny.
Because he looks like a Harry Potter figure,
yeah,
like character to us.
That's it. He was quick on his feet, just jumping up and down, and amazing. I remember that so well. And it was just great to see. And as I said, it punctured the groupthink. And I've said this before, that the trouble with groupthink is that wrongthink becomes evilthink. When there's just this tiny minority opinion, then it just becomes subversive. It becomes something that is threatening. It's so easy to demonize. And what we saw on both those debates was Charlie's ability to put across cases and positions in a winsome, civil, respectful way. And I think the assassination it's triggered off a whole lot of very interesting debates on the free speech side of things, of course, and Charlie's great free speech warrior. We've been fighting a lot on free speech battles on university campuses, and but if this is how it ends, if one side is so quick to resort in the end to lawfare or warfare or violence, what do we do? Where does that leave liberalism? Where does that leave the project?
Before we move on, we've seen the reaction around the world, but those Cambridge students who came out to support Charlie last May, how have they reacted to this?
Well, I tell you, they've been in pieces. It's been very upsetting for them. And my son, in particular, who just worshipped Charlie, and Charlie recorded a little video for him actually when I was here at the offices a month ago. It's been very hard, and even those who didn't know him at all. I mean, we gathered the 2 days after it happened. Friday, it was the Friday evening outside Downing Street. A pretty spontaneous vigil. Thousands and thousands of people around the Cenotaph and Whitehall. Just so moving, just this very kind of, very unusual to see that in London. It just sort of, there was a sense of a great kind of peace and love.
Radio back here.
Yeah, we'll take radio back, but I love where this is going. Stay right there. Welcome back to radio stations across the country. We have Dr. James Orr, who is a brilliant man, and you're a professor at Cambridge University, and you welcomed Charlie to the UK. You helped get these debates set up for Charlie, which would be one of his last big trips. And it's hard to think about that. He loved that trip. He loved meeting you. You were so dear to him. And I know that you guys had great plans to keep learning from each other, and you are yourself becoming sort of known politically in the UK, and I know that you enter into that with fear and trembling and a great weight on your shoulders, and we can get into that a little bit later. But I love what we're talking about. You were witnessing the immediate aftermath of the assassination, and there was huge vigils throughout the UK, and I said something that before, that prophets are rejected. That is sort of the model. And he was a prophet taking the truth around the world, even to the UK. But there was a remnant that heard what he said. And then you had Tommy Robinson lead this huge march. Elon Musk called in. They talked about Charlie. I saw so many people with Charlie's picture, and they were chanting, Charlie, Charlie. It was really beautiful for me to see this outpouring of love for Charlie, even across the pond. What was that like? Take us into that moment.
Yes, well, I didn't go on that march, but I know that over the summer there was a lot of anxiety in the press, within the establishment about it, and I remember talking to Charlie about it last month, and there were just sort of premonitions, people thinking that this is going to end violently. It was demonized. And I think, one silver lining, you might say, is that I think the march, from what I can tell, was broadly peaceful. I mean, I think there were about 100,000 people marching through the streets, and I think there were something like 25 arrests, which I think, when you compare it to similar kinds of events, it's not out of the ordinary at all. And it was, from what I could tell, from just looking at the footage, it was peaceful, and I'm sure that sense of it being a vigil for Charlie, it being a sort of witness to Charlie, as you say, his face was all over, posters everywhere of him, and I think that would have had a calming effect on the march, and I think there was a great atmosphere, from what I could tell. It was broadly demonized in the mainstream media afterwards, as far as I could tell, but I think it went off a lot better than many people were worrying about over the summer.
Yeah, well, and to the point about violence, and I know that there's an establishment press that is even more entrenched in the UK than there is in the US, and they still have more power to sort of set narratives and things. And so that's certainly something that needs to be addressed in the UK. But the point is, you had all these people that have a lot of reason to be upset about things, but they're largely peaceful. And that's the actual truth. The actual truth is that it was sort of beautiful and really respectful. And we got a note yesterday. I can't divulge who this is from, but this note was passed along. It said, just got off the phone with a friend, won't say the name, who is SWAT and was tasked with working the memorial for Charlie here in Glendale, Arizona. He said they were all briefed to 100% expect something major to happen. And the whole event came and went without one arrest between Peoria, Mesa, Glendale, and Phoenix PD all assisting. A complete anomaly for an event even 10% this size.
Even the Super Bowl would have someone get drunk and like punch a guy.
Yeah. They didn't have one arrest. And the power of prayer, you know, I keep saying this over and over again. The first time in my life that I can feel the prayers of strangers. Just sustaining this whole team through Turning Point Action, the Charlie Kirk Show. You can feel it, and you could feel the prayers inside the memorial, and you were there. You actually made it back, which is a whole other saga, which is incredible, and I think such an honor. Charlie would have been just so honored to know what you went through in order to get like planes, trains, and automobiles for you in that trip. But I do want to stay on the UK. Do you think, you know, a lot of people are talking about this as a revival moment in the US. A lot of people are talking about this is the turning point. This is a politically galvanizing moment. Do you feel like this is having at least some sort of the same effect in the UK?
It's had extraordinary reverberations all across Europe, I think, and definitely in Britain. I'm having conversations with people about faith, about family, about freedom, about loving your country, that I simply, you know, was just very, very difficult to have before. And he's unleashed something extraordinary. A lot of people didn't really know who Charlie was, I think, in Britain. It was only, you know, when the news broke, people started, you know, the framing. I think even on the BBC to start with, at least was saying this is a far right character. Some of the press were just were demonizing him, but very quickly that shifted, and it was just obvious. He was you couldn't mistake it. He was an extraordinary husband, loving father, civil, respectful in his engagement with young people, and that came across very, very quickly. And so it's been remarkable, the kind of conversations that have opened up, and I think his legacy is going to be a remarkable one. I think you know, we're having these big debates in Britain at the moment around exactly these kinds of issues, and all of those sort of those great sort of four cornerstones, I think, of, you know, the faith, family, flag, and freedom that were just celebrated in that extraordinary way in the stadium on Sunday. And it's very difficult still in Britain to have conversations around those. But something's shifted, and I'm sure that Charlie's legacy will be to catalyze that and to put those issues back on the table. And they're going to be right, you know, front and center of the British political landscape over the next 5 years.
I just want to make sure you're getting it, because you and James, you were in England with James, so I just want to make sure I'm giving
Blake has views on what's happening over there.
Of course. You know, before we move on too far from the debate, I know I followed this, you definitely followed it, but I don't know that a lot of people in the U.S. know about this, that one of the Oxford Union people that Charlie met when he debated there, he posted something about Charlie's death that was pretty bad, and there's been a backlash to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's the incoming president of the Oxford Union.
Do we have that?
Who debated Charlie back in May. I think said something, I can't remember the words.
The guy with the
he said,
yes.
Okay. So President-elect George Aberonier, who there is an image of them debating. I'll get that loaded to our team so they can put this up. Get that ASAP, guys. So he posted. He debated Charlie. He was one of the people who debated him.
He was actually
and
really
he appeared to he shared multiple celebratory remarks about the shooting on WhatsApp, according to the Oxford student. One message said, Charlie Kirk got shot. Let's effing go. And the other said, scoreboard FN. I don't know what that means. I think Ryan would probably be able to tell me what that means. But basically, scoreboard, I mean, it's like basically put a point on the board because we took one down. And you can probably tell us more about what happened since.
So has he been punished for this?
So there was a big debate kind of blew up afterwards. To be honest, I was so upset at the time. I was tuning out of the negative reactions, and I was trying not to dwell on it too much. But I was getting a lot of texts from people who were signing effectively a letter of no confidence, and I think the threshold is, I think it's something like 150. So if you were an officer of the Oxford Union in the past, you could force a resignation. I think they've hit about 70 signatures, and we are. I mean, it's
very damning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's touched a nerve because the worry is this legitimate speech? Is this he was should he be expelled for this? Should he be rusticated?
Okay, but hold on. This is one of these stupid academic cul-de-sacs that people that are educated but beyond their intelligence get themselves into, and this is like, I'm sorry, Charlie Kirk was murdered, assassinated. Do you think it's okay that Martin Luther King or JFK or Lincoln or whoever was assassinated? Do we think that this is okay? Do we think political violence is okay? Listen, I understand if some fringe character on some Discord chat thinks that it's is gleeful, but that person does not represent Cambridge or Oxford. That is supposed to be a premier institution. I'm calling. I hope this gets clipped. I am calling on you sane left-wing students that are still advocates for civilization to sign that petition, that letter, whatever it is. Get it to 150. That is not okay. Even if you disagree with Charlie. Charlie was a fundamentally good and decent, loving husband and father who believed in the building blocks of Western civilization. He did not deserve this. And for somebody to represent your school that would celebrate his death is shocking that you cannot get 150 people to put their name to disciplining or at least or whatever. I don't even know what this, but the fact that can go unchecked is abysmal. It is such an indictment of the moral character and the lack of moral clarity that exists at the UK's elite institutions. I just have to say that. Get it over 150.
Absolutely right. Language like that, it lays down the enabling conditions
correct
for violence, and
it dehumanizes conservatives. That if you are a conservative, you're less than human. You don't deserve to live. And by the way, if somebody kills you, you had it coming.
Yeah. To be clear, the unanimous reaction on left and right in Britain was one of condemnation and anger.
Good.
And so
apparently not unanimous.
But why are there not 150 signatures? When somebody actually has to put their name to it, they get weak in the knees.
Yeah.
What is there to be weak in the knees about political assassinations?
No, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, 2 days later, I remember I was having lunch with Nigel Farage, and people. This group walked out and screamed fascist at us, and I just thought to myself, and he gets that all the time, of course, but I just thought to myself, Charlie's blood had barely run cold, and still they would have known exactly what had happened. They would have known the kind of rhetoric and the demonizing that can lay down, as it were, the conditions for violence on the left. And I just, I don't see how we come out of this. I don't see what solutions liberalism has.
I didn't mention this, but it's worth mentioning that go ahead and put up 141 again. You can do it on the screen. And this is this poll about political violence being justified, 141. And you look at the date that this was conducted, September 12th through September 15th. Charlie was murdered on the 10th.
Yeah.
This is a poll conducted after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and 30% of young liberals still believe that. Yeah. That is
extraordinary.
That'll make that should be a sobering stat for anybody. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dr. James Orr from the UK.
It would be one thing if President Trump signed an executive order saying, CNN, you can't say this. That would be a violation of freedom of speech. It's very simple. It's access. Access to the White House is a privilege, not a right. You have to apply for it. To get on White House grounds, you have to behave a certain way. You have to hopefully dress a certain way. You have to be with a certain honorable understanding that you don't run the White House. You cover the White House. And if you act like a jerk, you might get kicked out of the White House.
So what do you think the Associated Press has been doing wrong to get kicked out of the White House?
In that specific instance, they decided to not use official government terminology, which was the Gulf of America.
Right. The official terminology that just got changed.
That's how it works.
Well, personally, I think that if you are a major press organization, you should be allowed to have that.
Just so we're clear, Joe Biden used billions of dollars to fund actual censorship of Americans' rights to speak. The Joe Biden White House went after anybody who questioned the efficacy of the COVID vaccine. Joe Biden, personal White House, went out to Twitter and Facebook trying to silence anyone for saying that. Thank you for your time. I got to get to the next question. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'm talking.
How many people we got here?
We're three, but they're
Okay.
just my entourage.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Don't worry about that. Girl, get the middle. Thank you.
Be more respectful. Come on.
Oh, they're my girls. I'm always respectful. Anyways, I have a big quick question is about private colleges. Why should they be able to bend to the rules of Donald Trump when they get to decide their curriculum? I know I started off with my college. Oh, sorry about that. I started my college career in a private university on Lacey, like St. Martin's, and they're a big Catholic university where they get to decide their own curriculum, their own way of teaching, and especially it was religious. And so now Harvard is being struck with a bunch of deals where they're not allowed, they're being withheld $2 billion worth of research funds, or was it 200 million? I'm sorry if I'm, 2 billion, right? Thank you, sorry. But they're a private university. Why should they bend to the knee? Because they're private. I get why public universities, because we're funded by the government, but why should private universities bow to the knee of the president?
Well, first of all, private universities receive a lot of government money too, through federal student loans called FAFSA, right? So
Yeah.
FAFSA is all federal student loans. Secondly, that's taxpayer money that is being sent to Harvard, $2 billion. Thirdly, Harvard has a $50 billion endowment. They can pay for their own research. We don't need to be financing research at Harvard when they're sitting on a $50 billion cash pile.
Okay, but at the same time, it is like a private university. Like, even with if it's like Catholic or not Catholic, because I know Harvard's not like a religious school, right?
Well, it used to be, but not
It used
anymore.
to be, not anymore. Like, I went to a fully religious Catholic college.
But I bet they still took federal money. You use
little
FAFSA?
bit. No, we use WA, FAFSA.
Yeah, FAFSA.
Yeah, WSFA.
Okay, yeah, again, FAFSA. Yeah, so that's federal money.
Yeah.
So the idea of a private school is actually a very questionable idea.
But why can't we teach different ideologies at different times? I'm not combating, like, whatever your ideology or whatever behind me's ideology is.
That's fine. Harvard can do it at once. We as taxpayers don't have to finance it. That's the question.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't have to finance it, but why is there going to be so much backlash behind it? Why do we must combat them? If they want to teach their way, so be it. There is such a problem with people constantly combative. Can't we just have a problem where we can disagree and then
What was your question? Is anyone following this? I'm not. Yeah.
No. Girl, I was expedited. I'm just trying.
It's all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I get a hat? Get
Okay,
someone's
sure.
Thank you.
You were very polite. Thank you. All right, thank you. Nice to meet you, Entourage.
All right, welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. Time is flying with you, by the way, Dr. James Orr. It's truly amazing. We have actually Charlie's debate with the. It's coming. I don't know that we have it yet. With the new incoming president. Yes. So we'll play that before this segment ends. But I mean, give us. I don't know. Your just sum it all up. Charlie, England, the UK, free speech, wherever you want to take this, because we were just discussing in the break all these other things we're going to get to, but I think we need to put a capstone on this hour.
I once made the mistake of asking Charlie what part of the motherland he was from, his family was from. He said, "My surname's Kirk. Where do you think I'm from?" I said, "Yeah, okay, right." He's proud of his Scottish heritage. he loved Britain, and he had this sort of, I think sometimes in our country we get a sense, a note of almost kind of a smug contempt from America as to what's going on over here, but it's just not true. And I think Charlie sort of personified that. Charlie was somebody who he loved the country. He was sort of heartbroken at what he saw was happening to it, and the fact that it was just losing, that it was no longer the cradle of those founding values that he believed made America great, that gave America its DNA. And he was so passionate about us, and not just recently. I mean, I can't remember when he set up Turning Point UK. I think it must have been 2017, 2018. I don't know if he's did that in any other country. I mean, he had a fierce desire to kind of connect that sort of Anglo-American axis, and I think it's been pretty successful. TP UK, they're the ones who organised that vigil outside Downing Street. They've
got a good social media following.
Absolutely right, and so it's something we talked about it a lot actually last month, and how to help ramp it up and how to kind of develop this sort of a youth movement on the right in Britain, and so he was passionate about it, and I think felt the right's in a little bit of chaos at the moment in some ways. I think it's kind of fruitful chaos. We talked a lot about it. There's all sorts of emerging movements. There's a lot of vitality now, I think, on the right, a lot of philosophical energy, a lot of political energy, and you're seeing that now reflected in the polling.
Do you think that do you think Nigel Farage is the likely next Prime Minister if things hold?
Yes, I do. I think he is set to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Whenever the election is going to be held, I think the latest it could be held is August 2029. That's a long time.
That's a long way.
That's a long way.
That's an eternity in politics.
Was it Adam Smith who said there's a lot of ruin in a nation? Well, I just don't know how much ruin there is left in ours with the current government, certainly. But yes, I think if you were, the betting markets and the polling would suggest that Nigel is set.
Keir's very unpopular.
Extremely unpopular, yes, absolutely. I think he's just this week, his approval rating sank to below what I think Boris Johnson had at his very, at the nadir.
At that nadir, as we say.
Exactly, and so
it sounds better.
There's a lot, there's a lot of maneuverings now on the left, which is now fragmenting into the kind of the Rainbow Caucus, the Crescent Caucus, the Star, the old school socialists, and it may be that he gets almost very likely that Starmer gets unseated. I mean, we're good at ditching prime ministers.
Yeah, I was going to say, what triggers it?
Well, so we're a parliamentary democracy. So what that means is you've got the party that can command a majority and command the confidence of the House of Commons is the government. And now Starmer's got a majority in I think 154. And so turkeys don't vote for Christmas, even if the turkeys really, really hate each other. And so it's very likely that the government will survive in some form till the end of the electoral cycle. But I suspect Starmer's not going to be that long in Downing Street. And
one could hope. So Nigel's well positioned. By the way, we were going to play Sweatpants Bro, but I actually like this better. Let's play the clip from the UK of Charlie paying you quite the compliment, Blake. 162.
Blake is like the smartest person I know. We're all plenty prepared to like.
That was sorry, I just had to do that for you. Charlie was very impressed by Blake's intellect and by your memory, and that was you traveling with your travel buddy. You guys were international travel buddies at the end. I mean, it really was something.
I picked up on that reverence for Blake over at our dinner in Cambridge, and whenever there was this kind of difficult moment, a difficult discussion, or we needed some facts, Charlie would turn to his left, say, Blake, and he'd always have the answer.
Well, it's true. You do have a weirdly photographic memory for history. Maybe it's not photographic, whatever it is. You have a great recall. We're gonna transition in hour two. And we're going to talk about this Jimmy Kimmel controversy, and we're gonna start debunking this both sidism with some actual facts, and I think that's important. We'll be right back with Dr. James Orr. Don't go anywhere.
not agree on what daily news channel to watch. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, we can talk about it, and we agree that, you know, a lot of the mainstreams on both sides.
You have to agree on it. I'm telling you right now, as someone who is married, when you have to instill values in a child, you cannot have the first elemental issue at 7 a.m. when you turn on the radio or a podcast to be disagreement. You got enough of that already in a home.
Yeah.
You need to have harmony.
Can I ask you, like, specific issues? Like, we agree on abortion.
Good.
We've talked about immigration, and I've said, you know, Trump's not anti-immigrant, he's anti-illegal immigrant, and we need to protect our own citizens, and we do need to bring in people from other countries, but only when we can actually give them opportunities. And we agree on that type of thing. So what would be dividing beliefs?
Well, I asked what was the revealing? I asked, would she vote more Republican than Democrat? And you said, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said, not really.
Yeah.
And again, I'm only saying, build a life with someone where you have agreement on the macro issues. You can have disagreement on the micro issues. You need to agree on religion. You need to agree on eternity. You need to agree on political matters. You could disagree on what type of food you like. That's micro. Yeah. You could disagree on bedtime, right? You could disagree on the type of cars or where you vacation. That is micro. Macro, you must be in alignment. And understand, let's just take, for example, you're raising a child. And she's like, hey, you know, you take the son in the morning and then he'll be with the mom. Is that kid going to hear two different things? A house divided can't stand. And so that's the point, is that there must be harmony, because if all of a sudden, for example, your wife will be like, well, you know, Trump is XYZ, and you say, well, no, he's actually this. At some point, it's like they'll look and they'll say, well, there's disunity there. So I'm a big believer in macro agreement. I'm not trying to like rock your world here, but do not try to change your girlfriend or your future fiance or wife politically. Does not work.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now.
This would actually be a good segue. So I was going to come here to Wazoo. I go to Spokane Falls Community College. I didn't want to live the party life, the college frat life, and I didn't want to be influenced by liberal universities. I wanted to kind of just work and go to school. And I think a big piece of her political beliefs, I hear her, she has an open mind to what I say, and she starts to agree with things. I think a lot of her life has been influenced by having two liberal parents, and then now she's in school.
Do not marry this girl. Like, you do not want liberal in-laws. Like, you do not want this. I'm telling you, run away, find somebody else. In-laws are very important. I'm telling you right now, as someone who's married with 2 kids, in-laws become embedded. You almost inherit them as pseudo-parents. And like, if all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, here's Thanksgiving, here's Christmas, you should be excited about Thanksgiving. You should be excited about it, not like begrudging against it. And so if you want warfare in the family, because here's the sad truth. You want like the more blunt truth?
Why not?
Is she have a good relationship with her dad?
Yeah.
She'll side with him over you. Every time.
Yeah.
She will leak to her parents against you if all of a sudden she feels as if the politics is going under the marriage. Her first love is her dad. And if she has a good relationship with her dad and she feels as if that you're like bringing bad ideology in there, I'm sure your mind is turning a little bit because you might have seen some examples of this. She will go back to the liberal parents against you and you'll be on an island.
Yeah. And I say she has an open mind, like I don't want to put her under the stereotypical liberal. And
I'm not saying that.
I will say it's
parents matter though.
Yeah, but with her dad, I'll just like give you this anecdote. Her dad knows how I voted, and and he's a pretty strong advocate against Trump. He hasn't ever brought it up to me. We've had a good relationship, and she has called out her dad for not having enough of an open mind, and she says that, you know, I'm torn between you two, and I think you should be less hateful.
I know. I'm telling you though, tie goes to the runner, which means tie goes to the biology, and because it's unfair for her to choose, like, you know, which one or the other one. You might think like I'm generalizing. This comes from over 10 years of seeing and doing this, that political agreement is a necessary foundational element when you want to try to build a family.
Got it.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
You got a lot to pray about and wrestle with. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. I love my in-laws. My in-laws are great. They're all MAGA.
All right, so that green shirt guy from a little while back got me thinking, how in your mind can someone be a dictator when they willfully gave up their office?
I mean, you can act like a dictator. And I mean, Joe Biden didn't even know he was president, right? I mean, so For him, he might still think he didn't sign any documents. I mean, this guy's a joke, right? I mean, and by the way, dictators give up power a lot. Bashar al-Assad willingly gave up power in Syria. That's a bad example.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, a dictator implies that there's assumed power there that they have absolute control over.
Not necessarily. Again, what I was saying is that, let me be even more clear. Yep. When you use the legal apparatus to go after your political opponent, that is acting like a dictator.
In what way?
Because there's a dissident, Donald Trump, that's about to encroach on your power, and you're cheating. You are using what should be impartial justice as a way to favor, as a way to give yourself an advantage.
So how was the justice impartial when the warrants used to search his Mar-a-Lago mansion were in fact issued by an impartial, neutral judge?
Okay, search warrants are very different than indictments, but we shouldn't be searching Trump's residence in the first place. Former presidents should be off limits, period. Unless they're doing something, I don't know, like flying to Epstein's Island, then you actually don't get anything wrong with it that happens to you. So it's like, the point being is that we shouldn't be going after former presidents.
Well, can former presidents not engage in corruption then?
Of course they are, but we didn't go after Bill Clinton on the Clinton Crime Initiative for this exact example. It sets a bad precedent.
Well,
we didn't go after Bill Clinton for Epstein Island for this reason because it sets a bad precedent.
Shouldn't we set a good precedent, though, by going after the former presidents who are in fact corrupt?
No, actually, because almost every president is corrupt, and we as a country have never done this before. We basically say these are largely off limits because it will be so divisive and destructive. People want to know why the country's so divided. They tried to put Donald Trump in prison for half a century. What does that do to the country? It's an insult to all of us. As if, oh, you guys are going to have a voice. So sorry, we're going to go lock him up in prison. It doesn't take a lot of schooling to know that that's cheating. That's unfair. That is not playing by the rules.
Well, to be fair, right? Like, it's not necessarily not playing by the rules because it wasn't Biden himself that issued that order. It was a Biden-appointed judge.
It was his person. No. It was Merrick Garland that orchestrated the whole thing. And Merrick Garland reported to who? To Joe Biden.
Yeah, but they still have their own unique opinions and ideas.
Merrick Garland cannot do something that's not in harmony with the president, period.
Well, no, that's not true because judges are supposed to be impartial.
Not judges. DOJ. He's the Attorney General of the United States.
But that's still like that's someone who's supposed to be impartial. And
no. The AG is not impartial. That's not true. The AG is the top law enforcement officer of a president. The president can order cases to be dropped, increased, decreased.
That's the thing is the Department of Justice can't have an opinion on a case, but the president can stop the case, right? Like the president has power to put things to an end, but he doesn't have the power to start things within the DOJ.
Yes, he does. You're wrong. He just did that with Miles Taylor. That's not correct. The president, the full authority over the Attorney General's office. DOJ is completely under the authority of the President of the United States. It's not its own branch. It's not, but by the way, tell me what branch of government is it then? What article of the Constitution did the DOJ
judicial
under?
branch.
No, it's not actually.
Yeah,
it's an article.
In a department that's supposed to be neutral to adequately distribute justice to people who deserve it, right? Is it not wrong to try and press charges on a former president, and then if it comes out that they're innocent, then it's just all said and done? I mean, Trump's trial didn't like get him put in prison for the rest of his life, like
because the trial never actually came to fruition. Again, I don't even know what we're debating here. It's hard to kind of take what you're saying seriously because you don't even know the branches of government, to be honest. So like it's like, let me just make this as simple as possible.
Welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. This is Andrew Colvett, your executive producer. I am joined by the great British patriot, Dr. James Orr, who, it was interesting actually, when we hung out in Aspen, there had just been this piece that came out about you, calling you the mentor of J.D. Vance. And you are friends with J.D. We are friends with J.D. He actually hosted this show the Monday after September 10th. And it was a great honor, a great tribute. But you took umbrage with that, didn't you? That framing of things. Because JD hung out, he went on vacation or something.
Yes.
And in the Cotswolds.
Yeah, I've known him for a few years. He had a trip to England over August. It was supposed to be a family holiday, but it
just worked the whole time.
It turned into a media circus, and he had to cut it short. He did some golf up in Scotland, I think, and I took umbrage at the description. This idea that I'm somehow mentor to the Vice President of the United States is not true at all. I've learned a great deal more from him than he's ever learned from me. But the last time I saw him in Washington must have been just a few days before it happened. I think it was about a week before it happened. And I just said, I was out in Arizona and spent some time with Charlie and his team, and it's, my goodness, you're in good shape for 2028. That machine is going to be is roaring and with energy and enthusiasm.
We hope he dives in. I mean, every indication you would think a vice president would be primed for that, but he's very coy about it.
Yes, of course,
he's being very respectful, and of course we appreciate that. It's still the era of Trump, and we're into that too. But
of course,
but yeah, tell us about your relationship with him. I think that's interesting.
Well, we met, I think a few years ago, and I think summer of 2019, I think it was, through mutual friends, and we hit it off. He was a private citizen at the time. I'd read Hillbilly Elegies when it came out, I think in 2016. I had a Texan friend of mine, I think it was end of October 2016, pressed a copy into my hands and said, Trump is going to win, and this is why. You need to read this. And I read it, loved it.
Wow.
So he was on my radar early on, and then had the chance to meet him in 2019. We hit it off. We talked a lot, and not actually very much about politics at all, although we did a lot of philosophy. We talked about faith, talked about theology, and I thought, gosh, this guy's promising. He could be a congressman one day.
Congressman.
He looks like he's got a bright future.
Yeah, everybody, by the way, I usually don't share numbers, but him hosting Charlie's show, and I hope people understand there's a difference between 1 million views on YouTube and and 1 million downloads of a podcast. I've never seen a podcast.
Let's just say it's true. It's our most downloaded podcast.
It's the most downloaded podcast episode, and I will just say that ever of all time. And JD did such a magnificent job, and I was thinking about that this morning. What he said on his episode when he hosted, he said, "Yes, we want unity, but first we have to have truth." And I think that is really relevant to something that's happening in our own news cycle right now. And the truth is, and I think we're going to discuss both this hour about this, both sidesism, it's a lie. But also, Jimmy Kimmel said that, he essentially stated, I think very clearly, that the shooter came from MAGA. And that really upset me. And I'll explain why. Because if you can lie about something so fundamental, where this individual had a trans boyfriend or whatever, however you're supposed to say it, I think that's probably the right way to say it, that he was into all this weird stuff. He was writing all of these notes on these bullet casings and things like that. And his own parents were worried about his radicalism. And then to go on the air and say, no, actually it was from MAGA. MAGA killed him. What that means to me is that you can lie with impunity, that there is a machinery in place that will defend you. Your life is not important. That I'm free to desecrate, your memory, because conservatives bad, and what you had it coming, and more should, it's basically a license to say we're going to support you guys if you guys go do this stuff out in the real world, and that's not okay. And so we have clips, Blake. I don't know which clip it is. The Jimmy Kimmel in response to the backlash he received. We can just play one of these. I mean, it doesn't matter. 132.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way.
So what I'm lacking there is I'm sorry I lied. I misrepresented the nature of who the shooter was. I'm sorry. I will do better. My sincerest apologies to Erica Kirk and to the Kirk family. And James, you're a Christian. Explain the difference between what he did, sort of parsing words, never kind of owning it. It was sort of, I'm sorry if you were offended. Explain what Christian contrition looks like, what it looks like in Scripture, historically, what it means, and what that was lacking.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could hear some contrition in his voice, as he was clearly emotional. Whether the emotions was being driven by what had happened to him, the fact that his career looked like it was on the precipice. I don't know. I mean, I think true contrition expresses itself in actions, and I detected a sort of a hint of a politician's apology there. Just deeply sorry that offense has been caused. But, repentance, the New Testament is metanoia, which means a complete transformation of one's mind, of one's intellect, one's understanding, one's heart. The Latin translation, I think, is penitemini, which is kind of not just repentance, but do penance. And there's a lot of debate about that in the Reformation, about, his sort of repentance is something not just of the heart, but you've got to do it. You've got to do stuff that shows there's kind of the outward working, the outward expression of inner contrition within one's heart. And I don't know. Look, I don't have a window into men's souls. I don't have a window into Jimmy Kimmel's soul. I just hope that this incident, this whole sorry saga, has made the left, has made the kind of American liberals think a lot harder about the language that they're using, and just being aware that spinning the kind of conspiracy theories that are completely fact free, as seems to be the case with this extraordinary charge that the killer was motivated by was part of the MAGA movement, just simply absurd, not a shred of evidence for it. I just hope that this will give them, pause for thought, and it'll just slow things down. And we just, there cannot be civil discourse if it's, if one side is constantly paying the consequences for indiscreet speech or violent rhetoric, and the other side effectively gets a free pass. And that seems to be what's happening, not just in America, but all across the landscape of Western culture, Western politics.
Yeah, Blake, you have kind of a contrarian take here, because you think we should just sort of move on from this topic. I want more.
Well, so what's frustrated me about it is they went and, due to sort of how it unfolded, we allowed it to become that, like, Jimmy Kimmel was this free speech martyr against, because we had Brendan Carr at the FCC, he stepped out, and he basically said, you better take him off the air, or we're going to, investigate ABC and Disney, and they're going to have to answer for all these things. And you took what it should have been, which is Jimmy Kimmel said something disgusting, and there really was this big organic anger against them, and that got tamped down, and it turned into, this guy in the Trump administration is silencing Jimmy Kimmel, who is also lame and not funny. And it took something that was good and it changed it. And it also colored, unfortunately, what we also saw, which was the very organic anger against all the other people who said disgusting things.
Yeah, I want to keep talking about that. We'll do it in the break. Quick break on radio. We'll be right back. Yeah, keep going with that, though, Blake. And I know I will say one of the things that I noticed, and you saw this with the Pam Bondi, I think it was a misspeak on Pam Bondi's behalf, because she kind of clarified her point after. She was talking about incitement. She meant to get to incitement.
Yeah,
she said hate speech.
It was so frustrating because
I would just say there was a lot of voices that on the right that said, we don't agree with the way she said that.
Yeah,
that's not our POV.
And that was also frustrating.
That's not Charlie's POV.
We've had to endure all this stupid, nasty, fake stuff on the left. We're like, the right doesn't care about free speech at all. They want to crack down. No, the backlash to Bondi saying the hate speech thing was immediate. It was basically unanimous.
Right. Yeah.
It was dial this back right now, and she did, thankfully. But it was a similar issue here, where I think there is a huge amount of genuine backlash to what Kimmel did. I think he probably would have gotten suspended In fact, we got reporting from the Wall Street Journal and others that suggested he was going to be suspended at minimum, even without what Carr said. And I think it put the wrong color on it that there was that kind of overt threat. And then the way he was, if you go to Carr's Twitter account, he was like posting all these memes and just like bragging about what he did. And I understand the impulse. It is a way, there is an element where the Trump movement made the movement more assertive, more bragging. And we've seen it with like the ICE stuff where they're like, we're deporting people and here's a meme of this person who is also a child predator getting deported, and it's great, and people have liked that. But you do have to be careful, because we do want to make sure that this is about that, Charlie, who is a martyr for free speech, a martyr for Christianity, and we don't want that to turn into Charlie is ever considered some sort of like justification for an anti-speech crackdown.
Charlie would reject that, by the way.
Completely.
He was basically a free speech absolutist. I mean, I think I say basically because, I'm just hedging in my mind, maybe some sort of incitement he would draw a line at. But, he believed in ugly speech. He believed in vile speech. He believed in the freedom to say evil things. I mean, that does cross the line into incitement, which is illegal when you're calling for violence for somebody. But, I mean, I struggle with asking the question, when we think about some of these ugly reactions, people celebrating, you think about the Oxford kid, sweatpants bro, where you're celebrating the murder of somebody. Is that not incitement in a certain way? Or, I think the spirit is certainly the same. Legally, the barrier is different.
So one of the things that makes American free speech so exceptional, even compared to other Western nations, is we have kind of the Brandenburg Standard for Speech. It's a Supreme Court case. And it's basically like, it is in fact only incitement if you are directly calling for some criminal act and like in a specific way. So if someone were to say, someone should go to the Utah Valley event and shoot Charlie Kirk, that is incitement. But even saying someone should shoot Charlie Kirk isn't by itself. And that enables a lot of ugly speech. As Charlie himself said, I think he has a tweet where he says, like, there is ugly speech, there is deranged speech, but there is not hate speech. And the thing with incitement, what's good about that strict standard is that gives us it means that an authoritarian government like the Biden administration has so little grounds to come out and say, and the left loves to do this, where, this thing you said, that was actually inciting hate against migrants. That was inciting hate against trans people. That was inciting hate against minorities, just because you say, I don't want more immigration. And certainly Dr. Orr can tell us all about how that's been abused in the UK.
That's where we're going next.
Which they'll claim that's a free speech country, but it's clearly not anymore.
But this is the distinction, and I think it's really important for us to remain morally very clear on this. What I was trying to say was that celebrating the vicious murder of our friend is vile, it's ugly, it's nasty.
100%.
And it is from the same demonic spirit that I think somebody would, this incitement legal. So I'm talking, there's two distinctions. There's almost like the demonic spirit that I would call it versus I totally the legal agree. Standard. And I'm not conflating the two. I'm saying, so, if you're gonna celebrate that, certainly maybe you didn't break a law, but you are participating in the same demonism. And I would just say, I have not fully internalized that, other than to say that may you live a life so remarkable, so courageous, and so true that the demons celebrate when you die, and may your enemies celebrate, because that means you have done something. You have been so extraordinary that you live rent-free in their heads, and they don't know anything else to do other than to say, thank goodness that extraordinarily effective person is off the board. But in Soren Kierkegaard's words, that's really just the beginning when a martyr dies. And so we're going to welcome back radio. We'll be right back in just 1 second. So, Dr. Orr, Charlie was a free speech absolutist, and one of the themes of his trip to the UK was about this issue of free speech. We've heard that in the UK, 30 arrests are made a day for people criticizing immigration, basically. Just this sea of humanity. And we have a ton of immigration into this country, which is one of, my pet projects, is to limit that. But we also have a country that's much larger, and it sort of can absorb the visceral feel or the visual feel of it can absorb it a little bit differently than the UK, which is, remind me, what are you, 60, 80 million? I can't remember. So if you have a couple million migrants come into the UK, I mean, it's instantly very visible. It's it impacts the daily life of a lot of Britons really quickly. Tell us about the state of free speech in your country. Did this 100,000 person march push back against that? Was that a theme of it? Explain.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, to go back to your earlier conversation, we don't have anything like the sort of the jurisprudence that's built up around the First Amendment over over the last 150 years. But I think up until the end of the last century, there was no sense that there was a kind of there were free speech problems in Britain. It's really been the last 25 years, I think, intensifying in the last 10 to 15, and I don't think there's any real doubt that it is connected to the rapid demographic change at scale that we've witnessed in the last 25 years, but particularly in the last 5 to 10 years. And what happens there, I think, is that there's sort of sense of a kind of high trust society, a moral community that is, basically shares the same universe of norms and standards of speech. That kind of gets fragmented, and silos begin to open up, and there's really just a dialogue of the deaf between different blocks within different demographic blocks. And so that's sort of that sense of being in a shared enterprise is starting to kind of unravel. And what happens there is that the state increasingly has to police these fragile boundaries between these different silos. And that's what we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen it under a Labour government, a left-wing government. We've seen it under the Conservative government. The last Conservative government brought in something called an Orwellian phrase, non-crime hate incidents, where police can record your name, whether they accept that no crime has been committed, that you're exercising lawful free speech, but they make a note of it. It goes on your record. Until recently, I think that was on your record forever.
So
now
it's just this database. The state, the Leviathan, is just collecting this.
That's right. The police, they are policing tweets, not streets, and it is getting worse.
Can Nigel fix this as Prime Minister?
Well, I think one of the central focuses, one of the North Stars of the reform sort of philosophy and policy agenda is, without question, free speech. So there's a lot of debates, I think, internally as to what that's going to look like.
Isn't that just politics? I want fewer immigrants in my country.
Yeah, so you're not going to get, you may well get a knock on the door if you say that in the wrong way online. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. But yes, I think that there's this thing about this sort of dominant left-wing orthodoxies become this sort of, the moral universe.
Yeah, it's like a puritanical,
a purity
zealotry.
spiral. Exactly right. So that any dissent, as I said earlier, it's any wrong think is evil think. It's something that is you've got to demonize. So it's this old point that we've made it many. It's on the left, the idea is that you're not just wrong, you're morally wrong. And on the right, okay, maybe it's not always the case, but I think generally speaking on the right, we do just think that, the left are honestly and sincerely mistaken. And there isn't the same rhetoric, widespread rhetoric of demonizing and a kind of name calling that, okay, maybe it's not direct causal incitement, maybe it doesn't meet the Brandenburg standard, but it's certainly, I think, shifting the conditions. It's laying down the enabling conditions for violence. If you call somebody, public figure, Hitler, fascist often enough, then you shouldn't be surprising that crazy people will do violence against them.
It's one of the most frustrating things where we've had the left is certainly pushed in the last couple of weeks to try to argue, actually, there's more right-wing violence than left. And one, it's false, and we'll get into that in the rest of the show. But I'm looking at these tweets. Matt Iglesias, that fat guy from Vox, he was people remind themselves of things he said a while ago. I'll read this one quick and we can go back into it. But he said it was when Tucker Carlson got harassed at his home in 2017 or 2018, people were trying to like kick in his door basically and like terrorizing his house. And he was saying, I'll read the full tweets later, but he was basically saying, this is a good thing. Like, you should do this to right-wing people. And now he's going to come out and be like, oh, I oppose violence against the right. Well, no, you just are trying to read the winds, Matt.
Dehumanization, otherization. We have a little bit of a surprise coming. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, I mean, it is this theme where, and this is why I keep harping on this Kimmel apology. It is not contrition unless you take full accountability. And I remember Tucker actually said this once to me, because you just brought up Tucker. Tucker said that he was taught at a very early age that your apology must be earnest and very, very contrite. And he said he's practiced this discipline his whole life. When he's sorry, he's like really sorry, and he'll look you in your eyes and he'll say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I've done. And that there is something powerful that I think that unleashes in the human spirit. And what that also does is it confers the humanity of the person that you've wronged. It says, you are worthy of me swallowing this and owning it and being humble to it because you are worth it. And when you refuse to do that, you're essentially communicating, you're not worth it. I don't believe in your inherent value. And, you know, so what? I'm going to just move on because I can.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think, we have lost that sense of moral sincerity, the importance of contrition, and apologies just so quickly just become, defensive statements,
I have a question for you. It's a bit of you handle it as you must. You are treading, I know you sort of have your hand in many pies right now. So can the West be saved without Christianity?
Well, the West is built out of Christianity, not only Christianity, but Christianity is the life force that fuses the Hellenic and the Hebraic engine rooms of Western civilization. It also harnesses the sort of power of Roman civilization. And so, to ask, can the West survive without Christianity is to say, well, the West just is. That is its DNA. And all of our moral reflexes, even our atheism, even our moral indignation against the wrongs of institutional religion is driven by a Christian impulse.
The reason we know what bad is because we've been told what good is, right? And yes, there is sort of a natural law, I think, baked into all of us, right? But we are, as a civilization, increasingly unable to get very obvious moral truths, a unanimity around them. Charlie Kirk was brutally murdered and assassinated. We didn't have unanimity that was a bad thing, and that is terrifying. Men are not women. That is a basic human truth. Lived experience teaches us this. We can't get unanimity on that. Now, I think we're probably like 90-10 on that at this point. But can we remember the straight line, as Charlie would say, versus the crooked line without a moral judge over all of us, something that we all ascribe to, because that was what built the West. You're talking about the engine room. This is from which all of our values flow. All of our morals, our laws, our politics have historically all flowed from a center point and his name is Jesus. And so I'm like Anglicans, don't even get me started on Anglican. I think you said in your quote, you're hanging on by your knuckles or something, by your fingernails. You're still an Anglican man. You're still a good Brit. But my hope is that this galvanizing moment, even in the UK and throughout Europe, is going to restore this sense of moral centeredness. And that's what Charlie would want. And you saw that outpouring at the memorial. It was almost like revival means that yes, it's new converts, but it's also old converts or cultural Christians that are saying, I want to get more into this. I want to embrace these ideas. I hope we see that in the UK, and there are signs.
There are signs. I mean, I saw just about a month ago, I talked about it with Charlie, some data that suggested in Britain, 18 to 35-year-olds, you're seeing a tripling of belief in God over the last 5 years. You're seeing massive spikes in Bible sales. Now, it's from a low base.
Yes, a low
but,
base.
And religious adherence and revival is notoriously difficult to capture. But something I think is stirring, yes.
There was a tweet the other day where I think it was Michael Tracy, who's done some stuff we like, but he was reacting to the rally where he's like, they're saying there's a spiritual revival, but how do you measure a spiritual revival?
Well, here's what I would say, is that Christians are called to be salt and light. We are the preservers of society. We preserve the truth. And I don't think we need to have all of us or the whole culture buy in to preserve the food, the nourishment for society. So something to keep in mind. We will be right back with radio. Don't go anywhere.
The voice of generations is The Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, welcome back to The Charlie Kirk Show, radio stations across the country. I'm Andrew Colvett, executive producer of this show. We're remembering Charlie Kirk with one of Charlie's British friends, JD's mentor. And sorry to throw that on you. Just dredging up something you just hate. I love that you do. I love your humility that you just hate the phrasing of that. But that's, of course, Dr. James Orr, professor at Cambridge. And what is your official professorial title? They're always so long.
Yeah, so we've actually switched to the American system now. We used to have nice old kind of Dickensian names like junior lecturer, senior lecturer, reader. The reader was baffling. If you were basically one off from a professor, you were a reader, which, in the end, Oxford and then Cambridge decided that this was just too confusing. Like a reader, when you're one off, just one off a professor makes it sound like you just sit in the library and that's all you do. So I'm an associate professor. I'm not a professor, so I'm one off full professor. And what is my title? Associate Professor of Philosophy of Religion. And so philosophy of religion is my area, but that covers a very wide range of different topics. There's a lot of moral philosophy, what we've been talking about just now, political philosophy, philosophical theology. In fact, one of the reasons I was always coming over to Arizona was to film a series for Peterson Academy, one on philosophy of religion, one on philosophy of mind, consciousness, AI, the soul, and those kinds of questions. And I'm doing the third one is an introduction to Aristotle, from logic to life.
Wow.
Charlie
loved Aristotle.
So quick plug there. And he was so hungry for all of that. Wanted to know, just wouldn't stop, asking me for things, lecture notes. And I hope I sort of did him proud with my responses. And you could just see how seriously he was taking the tour as it was coming up. In fact, I think he said, we were putting plans in place for me to go with him to University of Missouri, I think, on the 29th.
One of these.
It was on the 29th of September, and we were and he said, that's going to be the tough one. That's where it's riskiest.
Well, that was Ferguson.
Yeah. He said that's the one that's going to be the most dangerous. I said, well, I hope you got a lot of good security. He said, yeah, it's all sorted. Don't worry about it. But
By the way, can I make a point of that, just in defense of our security team? People need to understand that they do not have jurisdiction on the rooftops or the surrounding area. Their only jurisdiction on a campus is Charlie's physical proximity. Right. And they were coordinating with local PD and campus PD to make sure all of those venues. But ultimately,
we don't have counter snipers. We don't have the Secret Service.
Right. Well, exactly. But in many campus PDs do not have drone programs, which is a big problem. I'm actually working on that because it's something they should all have. It should be mandated by some sort of law. And so anyways, it's in quick defense of the security, they're only allowed to protect his immediate vicinity. They have to rely on PD to secure the larger perimeter. So anyways, that's one thing. Anyways, our team, I said salt and light, and they were like, here's Charlie on talking about salt and light, so why not? It's either 168 or 103. Play the clip.
Call this to be salt and light. What do salt and light have in common? They change the environments they come in contact with.
They don't conform, they don't affirm, they transform what they come in contact with. My question for you, are you transforming the environment you come in contact with? Your place of work? Are you transforming your family? Are you trying to lift people up? Are you trying to reject evil? It says in the Psalms, Psalm 97:10. What do you want to be caught doing upon Jesus' return? Do not allow eschatology to be an excuse for you not to fight evil. Do not allow the signs of the times for you to be paralyzed, static, to not engage in the culture. We must challenge people to be greater, to reach higher, to be biblical, to be Christ-like. And I'm telling you, this generation cannot just be the most conservative generation, but the most Christian generation as we continue to be salt and light in every single walk of our life.
Oh, amen.
Extraordinary. I mean, just going, I find it difficult to look at old footage and, I've tried to just screen it all out because it's makes me too emotional. But he had this extraordinary gift to talk about faith in a way that was just so accessible to. It just grounded everything he said, all of the politics, all of the sort of neuralgic issues in this kind of non-negotiable, moral foundation. And there was just such authenticity and sincerity there. And it's, something that the right really needs to remember, that you've got to be anchored in clear moral foundations. And I think, without faith and without that sort of, without that framing that Charlie was always so insistent on, it unravels, and we get towards a sort of Nietzschean nihilism, or actual racism, and it's just amazing to be reminded of what he was like in full flight. And I've never seen him using notes, never seen him reading from a speech, but just extraordinary fluency and extraordinary sort of, just raw rhetorical flair. For someone that young.
He did. The story of how Charlie was discovered is, I think, very telling. And actually, something that Ben Shapiro, because he had come in on the Tuesday after it happened, and he said, Charlie wasn't charismatic at the beginning. And Ben said wonderful things about Charlie. Please, don't take this the wrong way. But it's actually a bit of the opposite of that. Is he was gifted from God, without any training, with this rhetorical flair. And the story was that Bill Montgomery was at some sort of Tea Party rally, and Charlie was 18, and he was going to be one of the speakers because he had, I think, gained a little bit of local notoriety for organizing. So they invited him to be one of the speakers, 18 years old, and the story that was conveyed to me is everybody's asleep. This actually, Bill told me this story, actually, many years ago. He said everybody was kind of asleep and dazed and bored, and then all of a sudden, Charlie took the stage, and Bill said it was like he looked at everybody in the audience. All of a sudden, Charlie starts speaking, and everybody goes, head up, ears perk up, because Charlie just had this way of his words would pierce, like they would pierce your mind and your heart. And I think this is his moral clarity was so strong that he was sort of like a dividing line. Like his words were a sword, and they were sharp, and they would cut through, and it would force you to pick a side. He didn't leave you any ground to sort of remain in the mushy middle. He would say things so, and he took a lot of flack for that. He took a lot of heat, took a lot of slings and arrows because he was so morally clear, and he would say it with such force that you had to sort of wake up and perk up out of your seat. I actually forgot that Bill told me. That was the first time I ever met Bill Montgomery, and may he rest in peace. He died in 2020. But that was Charlie from the start.
It's easy to think, obviously after 2016 on both sides of the Atlantic, there was, there many more people are coming through, and the new media emerged. US started to see a lot of incredible conservative voices coming through. But Charlie, at 18, we're talking the Obama years. This is the early 2010s when it was extremely costly and very rare for people of any age to be coming out. That, to have that kind of trenchant, clear moral horizon and that clarity, it's just remarkable. And it must have been, Kirk contra mundum in 2012. And I can't, I wasn't tracking American politics that closely back then, but, I would have thought within the GOP that would have been very unusual. And I don't know what sustained, I don't know where he got it from,
God. It was straight from God. That God had a plan from Charlie's for his whole life, but that 18 to 31
Charisma like that's difficult to
packed
explain.
so much into it, and you saw it up close in those last trips. But his schedule was truly to manage that schedule that he kept, especially at our conferences. Yeah. It was booked from 6 a.m. to the time he put his head down on the pillow. It was truly remarkable how much discipline it took. And I want to say, you talk about his fluency, and this is something that Blake and I talked about. I actually had a line in my speech at his memorial, and I cut it just for time. But this show was how he got battle ready, and everybody kind of reflects how Charlie leveled up over the years, and really, and I do think it was this show, because every day he was forced to come on this show and defend his values or his political takes or how he was reflecting on the current news of the day, and it just gave him repetitions. And originally the show was a 3-hour show, so he was doing a 3-hour show. We didn't move to a 2-hour show until January of this year, which was really wonderful for his schedule because he could get more done. But it did really make him battle ready, and some of the arguments we'd have before show, I mean, that was really special moments. Right, Blake?
Yeah, no.
It's just, I mean, it was your line. The battle ready was your line, so I was trying to give you credit for it. And it was a good line. But so we do have a potential surprise coming for you. Somebody might be joining us. I don't want to flag it unless it ends up happening out of respect, but nevertheless, I really hope it happens, because I think it would be a really sweet moment if we can do it. In lieu of that, however, Blake. Let's talk about both sidesism.
Yes, let's do that.
Are both sides equally guilty of political violence?
Yeah, so we've seen this a ton in the past, since this happened. So this came out. It was obviously the most spectacular, the most damaging assassination in the U.S. since RFK, probably 50 years ago. And actually almost 60 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so it's been... And so people are like, well, this fits into, and it came right after, there was this apparently racially motivated stabbing on that bus in Charlotte.
Right, yeah.
And people are saying, okay, there's a lot of left-wing violence out there. And so these experts trotted out with some charts that were in The Economist or in Cato or whatever, where they're like, actually, left-wing violence isn't common. It's right-wing violence that's way more common.
I even heard them mentioning J6.
The J6. They have DHS. DHS made that a huge priority under Biden. They always like to make it a priority because, that's who works at a lot of who was doing a lot of that work at DHS or at the FBI. Remember when they were investigating pro-life, like Catholic churches, because this was going to be this terrorist nexus. And so finally people are saying, you know what? Let's actually look at the numbers. What is the real deal with these numbers? Because they're just getting pushed. And so one of these studies that went really popular, it was literally just compiled by an Antifa person. An Antifa person made a study of what was more common, left or right wing. And if you dig into the numbers, there is so much lying about it. So I'm looking at this thread by Tim Carney, where he just looked at some of the numbers in what they were using for this database. So, for example, a suicidal young man made a hit list that included Trump on it. He then later killed 2 strangers who were both white. This was counted as right-wing political violence, according to an ADL study, because the shooter had a swastika on his gun. There was a felon in New Hampshire, Jesse James Sullivan, in 2024. He murdered his half-brother, who was white. But they counted it as a right-wing political violence because he had joined a white prison gang while he was in prison.
By the way, that's
offense.
what happens in prison. You have to find somebody that will protect you.
There's someone I found where someone sent anti-gay, made a harassment call to George Santos and said that he had hurt the gay community with what he did, and that was right-wing anti-government threats.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick radio break. I think we're going to keep going in the stream. Hang tight. All right, welcome back for the stream. Keep going, Blake. Because this George Santos, this guy calls him and makes a threat to him because George Santos made fools of the gay community.
Yeah,
so
a gay activist left a threatening voicemail for George Santos and said he felt he had undertaken anti-gay acts, and that was right-wing government-focused violence. And then another one was a homeless man broke into a hotel and attacked someone and used a racial slur. It was later put in a mental institution. Oh, that's right-wing, racially motivated violence. And so this happens over and over. And there's even a chart that was in I think this was in The Economist or somewhere, but it shows that, over time and how they allegedly, there's all this right-wing violence that peaks in 2018, 2019, and then it goes down in 2020. And that's how you always know all this stuff is BS. Whenever they put out these studies, they don't count what was clearly the biggest outburst of politically motivated violence in our lifetimes, which is in 2020, George Floyd died. We had gigantic riots in Minneapolis where they burned down a police station. We had gigantic violence in, sorry, one moment there. We had gigantic violence in Minneapolis. We had gigantic violence in D.C.
And they're counting this all as right wing?
I think they're just not even counting it. They're just like, oh, that's something else. This is it's mostly peaceful protests. Or they'll say someone has to be convicted. And life hack, don't convict people.
Which one? This is the prosecution project?
So the prosecution project, this is one that was getting shared a lot.
Yeah,
that
put
was
that image up if
supposedly
you can, guys.
tracking what violence occurs. And what they'll often do, so for example, in this chart, they say resulting in a guilty verdict. So if they have clearly hundreds or thousands of people going around, smashing windows, doing graffiti everywhere, terrorizing the public, but nobody was convicted of this.
Right. This is a great point. This is a great point because nobody was convicted of anything. As a matter of fact, the cities ended up settling with many of the protesters
giving them money, or
and saying
St. Louis,
sorry.
St. Louis, a mob brays and terrorizes that family. Was that the McCloskeys?
Yeah, the McCloskeys.
The McCloskeys bring out empty guns to have these people not storm their house and attack them. And I bet that's probably counted as nothing, or it's going to be counted as right-wing violence.
Sure.
Anti-protester, anti-racial justice. And it's just a total sham.
Yeah,
they besieged a courthouse in Portland for that. Oh, that was another one. One of the data sets that was getting shared around. It did not count a member of Antifa taking a gun, shooting a Trump supporter in the head in a murder, and they didn't count that as left-wing political violence. Probably because he wasn't convicted, because he was killed by the police before he actually
and
was arrested.
this is why it's such a salient point you're making, is because we saw in the aftermath of what happened to Charlie, we didn't riot, we didn't burn down buildings, we didn't.
It is a psyop. We need to learn the talking points.
We
on
did
this.
not loot businesses. We prayed.
And everyone knows this. Nobody actually, was prepping their stores or anything, or nobody was doing excess preparations like, we have to be ready. After Charlie Kirk. No one was worried about the Charlie Kirk riots. Nobody was even worried about that. We might have worried about other violence happening, but nobody was worried, all of those conservatives who like Charlie Kirk are going to go and burn down, Salt Lake City, burn down Phoenix. No one was worried about that. We do worry about that all the time with Antifa, with BLM, with causes that are on the left. This is what the reality is.
Right. You can
and we are
trade
just
statistics
BS'd
and studies
about this.
You can trade statistics and studies all you like, but the true character of a political movement comes out in moments of crisis and of tragedy. And I'm sorry, but the contrast is as clear as day between what happened in May, the aftermath of the Floyd killing in May 2020, and Charlie's death. I mean, that what you were saying earlier, Andrew, just not a single arrest. 100,000 people in that stadium, and we were all there. It was just so peaceful.
There was almost 300,000 people in and around the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
Got to welcome back radio. Hang tight. Final segment of the day. Excited. All right, welcome back. The final segment of the show. It has flown by, and it's really a tragedy, Dr. Orr, because we could really, if we wanted to just pick, a single thread, pick any of them from the Western canon, you would then be let loose like a Mustang to just, delve into this chapter and verse of this ancient text, and we could go on for hours. So it's almost a disservice to you to make you reflect at all on the ICE shooting or, the statistics about X, Y, and Z, because truly you are a marvel and you are a unique human that understands the Western canon and what built Western civilization, unlike anybody I've ever met. And I had some wonderful time with you, and we have a really dear shared friend, Don Williams, who was actually the man that married me and my wife, who you happen to know, and we discovered our mutual connection. Don went to be with Jesus a couple years ago, but a truly remarkable man that had a great life and a great ministry, and he ministered to you and he ministered to me. And so I think the floor is yours, my friend. Like, end this hour as you see fit. And I mean, maybe it's remembering Charlie, maybe it's what you hope to see come from this, and whatever it is, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. The check's in the post later. That's so good of you to say, and it's so strange to meet not just Charlie, but you and to his team, and just a few months ago, and yet felt like just the lifelong friendships were emerging, and we just had these great plans. And I learned far more from Charlie than I think he learned from me, because I think I was joking earlier. I spent months trying to get him to call me James, but it was always Dr. Orr, that incredible kind of humility.
It's ironic that he's known to be sort of anti-college and all this stuff, but yet when he met a true scholar, how much reverence he actually had.
And that came across, I thought, in Larry Arnn's beautiful tribute to him in the stadium. And I've never seen Larry, deeply kind of moved like that. He's always very good at keeping it together, but it was just such an extraordinary testimony. I think he mentioned at one point that, he said to Charlie, you got to learn, and it's going to take suffering. It's a great bit of wisdom from Aeschylus's Agamemnon, pathemeter, mathemeter. You have sufferings, learnings, and that idea that Larry just instills that in his cohorts at Hillsdale. And then just Charlie goes off and does all 31 Hillsdale courses available, then comes back for more, and just extraordinary. And I think it's hard to replace somebody with that kind of package of powers and skills and abilities and aptitudes. And
you can't replace him.
But I felt on Sunday, something had shifted, and that although he could not be replaced, there's something stirring, something that is peaceful, something that is that is kind of recovering the ancient vision for the West, of hope, of faith, of love, the great trinity of theological virtues. And it was just extraordinary to witness that. And there's a kind of envy. I remember that last show we did that was aired as his last show. We recorded it back in August, and I think I opened it by saying, I don't normally like watching things I do, but I wanted to watch that because I wanted to be reminded of him and of our time together. And I think I just started by saying, look, young people are always saying, we want to change the world. And I tend to think that the world would be a much better place if fewer young people were trying to change it. But in Charlie's case, I said, you really are changing the world. You are really shifting things in extraordinary ways. And I think I said at one point, we need to bottle some Kirk juice and bring it back to the mother country. And but I think there's going to be a lot of Kirk juice in Britain now.
It's been better than bottled. It's been unleashed.
That's right. And there's going to be there's a torrent of it all over the West now. And he what a role model he will be. What an exemplar he will be in death to so many who'd never really come across him before. It's true, as I said, in Britain he's being discovered for the first time by millions of Brits.
In France, I've heard similar stories about France,
That's
and
right.
Italy, and even Spain.
Especially among the young. I've lost count of the number of people saying, like, I've never heard of this guy, but my children are talking about it. My children are incredibly upset, and it's just an extraordinary legacy. I count it just such a high honor to have got to know him in the last few months of his life, and we must honor him in the months and years ahead. Honor his legacy.
You and he shared a mission to save the West, and we must do that. We must. It's worth saving. It's beautiful, and that was his passion. It's just been an honor to have you here, Dr. Orr. James, I don't know.
Thank you. At last.
Yeah, Dr. Orr.
Last.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Blake.